Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1008, written by jac-blac, The Shack of Whispers. First occurrence. So the Fae Trail is what my buddy called it. I don't know what that is, but it's what he called it. But anyway, we were going for a hike around a lake we live near, and about an hour and a half in, he stops and looks into the woods. I ask what he's looking at, and he just points. I look where he's pointing, and there is a pretty damn near perfect gap in the forest, like trees just didn't grow in this 3 or 4 foot line going straight as an arrow into the forest. So I think it's cool as hell and start walking towards it. He tries to chicken out, but I don't let him. We get to where the trail starts, and he freaks out, because there are mushrooms growing down the sides of the trail, like a border for it. I keep walking, but he literally yanks me back to the normal trail by my backpack and refuses to talk about it for the rest of the hike. I went back a few days later and couldn't find it. I assumed I had just missed it, but he says that it was a fake trail, and that it's gone now. I don't know what he's talking about. Second occurrence. The standing tree happened right outside of my house. There was a massive thunderstorm one day before, and it had struck a tree about 200 feet from my front door and knocked it over. Not a big deal. I'll get rid of it on the weekend, I thought to myself. The storm stopped for a bit, then continued into the next day. I had to leave for work, and I saw the tree down as I opened my door, and when I turned to lock it, there was another strike near my house. I spin around to see if another tree fell, and the tree that was already down was back up at about 45 degrees, and as I stood there being soaked, it kept going up and just stood up again. I feel like reattached would be a more accurate description. I was already going to be late for work, so I went to work, and when I got back home, I checked out the tree. I knew it was the same tree because it had bits of bark blown off of it. I'm 100% sure it was the same tree. It had cracks all along where it had broken, and there were still branches on the ground from where it fell. After that, it just kept growing. In a few months, most of its branches were sprouting again, and it just acted like it didn't fall over. Those marks are still there, although the tree is now dead. Third occurrence. The Whisper Shack is probably the strangest of these stories, and I could go on and on about it. I have some foggy memories of it, and some really clear ones too. The first time I found it, I was just wandering around in the woods, looking for stuff to shoot with my new BB gun. I came to a small clearing I hadn't been to before, and there is this little shack that could have been there for God knows how long. It was all sorted out and had definitely seen better days. I figured there might be something inside I could use for targets, so I walked up to it. About 50 feet away from it, I stopped. I don't really know why, but I did, and I had to convince myself to get closer. About 20 feet away, I thought I heard someone say my name. I look around and there's no one there, and I keep walking, and I get to the door and knocked for some reason. From inside I heard someone say, "Who is it?" It sounded like they were right behind the door because it was really quiet, no more than a whisper. So I bolt and get the hell out of Dodge, because creepy dude in the forest is not going to be how I died. As I get to the edge of the clearing, I look back and the door is open, not all the way, but kinda like half open, like someone was peeking outside. I didn't go looking for it again, but a few years later, I was walking in the woods doing other kid crap on summer break, but I found the shack again. Not the clearing, but just the shack. It felt like it just appeared there because I didn't notice it at all, and then I'm like 30 feet away from it. I walk up to the door and it's cracked open. I push it all the way open and it damn near falls off its hinges. I go inside and it's empty, except for a table and a chair. There is an old candle on the table that must have been huge from the amount of wax melted onto the table. As soon as I cross the threshold, it feels like someone is breathing down my neck. I spin around and there isn't anyone there. It was probably just wind and nerves. I go in and sit on the stool. It was hot and I was tired. I decided to light the candle because to hell with fire safety. As I'm sitting there, someone whispers in my ear, and I get up and shut the door. I don't remember what I heard or why I shut the door, I just did, and then sat back down and watched the candle. It burned amazingly bright, lighting the whole shack with a flame that I remember as being really big. I remember sitting there and hearing some more whispers that I just can't remember what they said, but all my nerves were gone. I was just relaxing in the glow and warmth of the candle. At some point, I remember getting up and sitting back down on the floor, still watching the candle, then watching the shadows on the wall. They seemed so alive, dancing in time with the flame. It seemed like I spent hours there. Eventually, the whispers told me to get up, but I didn't want to. I sat there for a little longer. They said something else and I got up, grabbed my coat, and stepped into a cold fall afternoon. I was halfway home before I realized that it was fall, and when I went, I was sure it was summer. I get home and everything is normal. My father hugged me when he got home, which he never really did. I just kept living a normal life after that. My grades were really good for that trimester. The next time I remember the shack was in 8th grade. I had gotten this book about how to set traps, and I didn't know I needed a license to do it, so I went to set some deadfall traps and the like. I happened upon the same shack again, and remembered what happened last time, so I avoided it. And a few days later, I was checking those traps, and they weren't where I put them. I had about 10 to 15 set up, and they were all arranged in a large circle kind of shape. They weren't like that before, so I took them all down, and when I was looking for the last one, it was right next to the shack. I went inside again, and there was still the table and the stool, but there was no wax and an almost new candle, along with another stool. I remember the whispers coming again and my nerves died down. I sat in the same stool I did last time. The whispers wanted me to light the candle again, but I didn't. They kept telling me to, but I literally couldn't light the candle. I had my lighter in my hand, but I couldn't move to light the candle. The whispers stayed that soft and comforting tone, and I wanted to light the candle, but I just couldn't. Then they got angry with me. They whispered, but it was like someone trying to whisper when they're really angry, like my mother scolding me in public or something. I really wanted to light it, but I couldn't do it. I sat down in the corner and cried, like really freaking hard, snot-nosed and just bawling like a child. Well, I was a child, but just uncontrollable sobbing. The whispers were quieter in that corner, but they were still angry at me, and I didn't know why. I must have been in that corner for at least an hour and a half, maybe more. Once or twice I got up and tried to light the candle, but I couldn't. I remember whenever I tried to, they were nicer to me, and when I couldn't, they got angry. I'm tearing up thinking about what they said to me. They stopped asking me to light it and started telling me to. Then they berated me, called me names, told me how bad of a kid I was. They told me things I didn't want to know. They told me things about my parents, about my friends, about my teachers, stuff that I didn't want to hear, stuff I shouldn't have known. They told me about my parents' divorce, which came later that year. They told me about my grandfather's death, which happened a year or two later. Many other things that I'd rather not remember, much less mention. Eventually, I stopped crying and got up, stumbled out of the door and went home. Probably took me another 2 hours to get home, stopping to cry more every so many feet. My parents were out for a few days and I didn't go to school. No one asked questions, no one changed. I blamed a lot of things on that day, but most of all, it changed me deeply. I'm a cold person now. I face down so many situations that would have affected me without any expression, without any feeling. I've had bouts of depression, but I pulled myself out of them. I faced down the barrel of weapons held by myself and by others. I lost a lot that day. Emotions are probably the worst. I felt fear very few times since then, happiness even less. I lost a part of me that day. Maybe it was the part that wanted to live. Damn me. 2 packs of cigs and almost a quarter bottle of Jack later I got that story out. Sorry if I was rambling. Sorry if I was a little too in-depth. This is the first time I've told the whole story.
Case notes for file 1008, The Shack of Whispers. Well, this was an incredible story to read. Thank you for sharing it. And I'm really sorry that it hit you so hard. But just know, I don't think that makes you weak or inferior in any way. If it happened to me, I might have reacted the same way. Dependency on something else to mask the immense weight it placed on your soul and your mind. It kinda sounds like whatever entities they were were preying on your good nature and your childlike innocence, and they robbed that of you. It's almost like Dementors in Harry Potter, but unlike there, it doesn't go away after they leave. Maybe chocolate will help? I mean, chocolate's always good, so you can't go wrong with trying that. Have an entire Hershey bar. You have a good excuse. And you didn't do what they wanted, which, in my estimation, is a good thing. I don't know exactly what it's like a ritual that they were trying to invoke. I don't know what exactly it would do, but I'm glad that you didn't go along with it. The first time you did it, where the candle was lit, and then time elapsed, where you thought it was summer but then it was fall. That's so mysterious, because everyone adapted to your being there, like normal. You know, it's not like you went missing for a few months. So it's almost like you were temporarily moved forward, but in a timeline where you had already done all the actions you would normally have done. But it also kind of feels like a different universe, because you say your dad acted differently, hugging you where he normally wouldn't have. It's altogether quite mysterious. And now time for the quote of the day. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. Aubrey Hepburn. I do love wordplay, so this is masterclass level. I'm possible. Yes. So technically untrue. There are things that are literally impossible to do, like bench pressing a mountain, within the context of reasonable possibility and the laws of basic physics. Yes. And if your mindset is that this is possible, you're gonna get somewhere with that mindset. It's better to have that mindset than to think that, it's almost everything is impossible, it's not even worth trying. Like I'm always saying, if you don't try, you're guaranteed to fail. It's no way to go through life. And this is Kinetic Symphony signing off. Like the video, subscribe, you know the drill.